Hello.
Hey Bob, what's up, man?
Hey Joe, how are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
Good, good. I'm having some camera problems, so I got you on my laptop camera. Hopefully it looks all right.
Yeah, everything looks good.
All right,
Yeah,
sweet.
we're in living
Awesome.
color. Where are you coming out of?
I'm just out of Fort Lauderdale, not too
Okay.
far from west of there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love Florida. Yeah, I'm landlocked here in Kansas City. No oceans or mountains or anything. So
Oh, nice. Nice.
maybe that's why we're so nice here, is because we know we don't have anything other than each other, so we better be nice.
Yeah, you better be kind or else you ain't getting very far.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, I love your story and I'm looking forward to diving in. And before we do, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you get through the last 3 years? And how did it change you?
Well, the first thing is, what better time than during a pandemic to start a business?
Yeah.
So my business partner and I were just working through starting a business then, and so the past few years have honestly been incredibly hectic and been fun though. And so really, to be honest with you, most of it was a distraction. I was about 45 minutes from Wuhan in December of 19.
Wow.
And so I made it back to Florida early January. We have some family that lives in Shanghai. They just moved actually, but they lived there for 19 years. And so I got firsthand, I was pretty early on the COVID bus, to be honest with you. We came home and I don't get sick. Honestly, I mean, my medical history, you wouldn't know that, but I don't really get the flu. Like I've honestly in my life, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've, kind of had the flu-like symptoms, probably not even. And I felt horrible. I've never felt that bad in my life. It was kind of strange. I felt like I was, on my deathbed. I've never felt like that before. And, a week or two went by and I started feeling a little bit better. And then all the news started coming out about what was going on over there. So anyway, kind of a crazy experience for me early on during COVID. And then, I think that honestly gave me the immunity that I needed, and I had no problems after that. And it was just kind of head down, building a business, nose to the grindstone, and here we are 3 years later. So
Wow. So let's get to the essence of what you do now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I help people use all the gifts and good things they have in their life to help other people.
So let's peel back the layers. Why were you in Wuhan? What was that incarnation of your life?
Well, I wasn't in Wuhan.
Or close to?
I
Yeah.
was about halfway between Wuhan and Shanghai. We were
Okay.
on a mini vacation. We were on a big vacation visiting our family in Shanghai,
Okay.
and thus we were on a mini vacation from Shanghai, and we were just, in a hotel, hanging out there, doing some sightseeing, and totally normal. Didn't think anything of it. Came back to Shanghai. We're there for a few more days, and eventually flew home after the holidays. So it was no thought. It's not that I've been to China now a bunch of times, so it was really nothing special. I mean, it was just a kind of your typical trip over there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, certainly does. So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Football player.
Okay. Did you play sports?
Yeah, I sure did. Played many sports. I mean, football was my favorite sport. And then if I wasn't going to be on the field, I was going to be near the field talking about it. And then broadcasting was my next love.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and kind of your timeline. How did you become the generosity guy? What was your kind of career trajectory up to now?
Sure. So growing up, wanted to be an athlete. If not, wanted to be a sportscaster, and graduated college in 2005. It was in New York and didn't want to stay in the cold weather that long. So I ended up going to University of Miami for grad school. So, but let me take a quick step back. You asked where I grew up. I was born in New York, moved down to Florida when I was 3. And so this opportunity to go off to college came, and I got a chance to go back up to New York, spend some more time with my family, get out of the house and kind of spread my wings, if you will, a little bit. And then I realized how cold it was and wanted to come home, and started broadcasting at grad school, graduated from University of Miami, graduate program for broadcast journalism, and worked in radio for a couple of years and got recruited into the financial industry. You know what they say, you don't actually work in the field you study unless you're a doctor or an attorney, right? So here I am in the financial world. I worked for a big company for about 12 years, my business partner for about 14, 15. And we were being asked to do some services that we just weren't allowed to in that business model in 2000, the late teens. and we decided to make the switch and start our own firm. So we have a wealth management firm focused on generosity. We provide family office style services for generous entrepreneurial families, and that's what we do. We love it.
Do you miss radio?
Miss? No, I wouldn't say miss. I liked radio more than television because I was published in the Miami Herald. We did a news show, so I had experience in print, video, TV, and radio journalism. But I I found TV to be way too scripted,
Yeah.
and print to be even more scripted and edited. But
Right.
like at the time, I liked radio because a sports talk show is 4 hours of just riffing on whatever you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Not that radio hosts don't prepare and have to work hard. It's not that they just show up and just spit for 4 hours, but it was a lot less scripted. Now television and radio and podcasts are way different. So I maybe miss some of the excitement of radio, coming in early on a weekday morning, and like what happened in sports the last night that we can talk about and laugh about and have a good time. But I don't miss some of the other some of the technical things, some of the business stuff behind the scenes in that industry.
That's why I got out. I actually got into sports broadcasting in the beginning. Who was the big broadcaster? One of your favorite sports broadcasters?
Well, when I was growing up, I used to listen to the first team on 560 QAM down here with Joe Rose and Jeff DeForest and Steve Goldstein, who I ended up working with Steve for a while there after I graduated. So yeah, I had a blast listening to them when I was growing up.
I actually had an internship at a local radio station here, and at that time, I got a loan to go to the University of Missouri St. Louis, and Bob Costas was there, and
Oh,
Dan
cool.
Deerdorf, all these guys. And I remember the night before Bob was there, all of us are like sports heads. ESPN Sports Center's on. We're all like freaking out. We're like, we're gonna meet Jesus tomorrow. It was just this moment where no one could sleep. We're trying to grind and grill through it. And I still remember I had a St. Louis Cardinals baseball that I gave Bob, and I said, when you give this to me, I'm going to have it in the booth with me, and I want to hold on to it as a good luck thing, like your Mickey Mantle card in your wallet. And he just grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "Son, you still have time. Don't go down this path." It was classic Bob. But yeah,
Save yourself.
that was a huge moment to see and to be around those people and to experience how that rolled. So, talk to me a little bit about heroes for you. Who's been kind of a hero that's motivated you to be who you are in your life?
Oh, love this question. I get this one a lot. So I have three different people that I point to in my life when I get this question, because I think they all have different places in what I do. And the first one I'll mention is in my personal life and just being a good person to others. I point to my dad. I remember him growing up. He was not a highly educated man. He worked very hard, mostly in supermarkets for his professional career. And he worked his way up to being kind of like a mid-level, like front end manager at a supermarket, and then ended up going through a series of layoffs at his company, and took a job with a small nutrition store, and kind of helped them build that business for a while. And like I said, he was never a business owner, never a high level manager. But even when he worked his way up to being in charge of a handful of people here and there, he would always treat people like they were, with great respect, and like they were on the same level with others. And I remember him being on his hands and knees, picking up, setting stuff up in the store. I'm like, "Dad, you're the manager of this section of the store. Why are you the one like crawling on the floor? Why are you walking through the aisles, twisting the jars so that the label reads forward, so that's easier for the customer to understand what the product is?" And I always learned that lesson for him, that he would just make sure that everyone had the best experience they could, regardless of their level of financial wealth or their position and status. So, in my personal life and how to treat others, I always point to my father. Um, Another person that I point to a lot is my cousin. He's actually younger than me, but he suffers from cystic fibrosis, and his life has been like no others. And there's people, I was a cancer patient when I was young, so I've dealt with illness, but I'm past that now. He's dealt with CF his whole life and will deal with it his whole life. And the lesson that I've learned from him over the years is that you can't take the things that you do have for granted. I mean, there's so many things in his life that are a struggle for him, because over the years. And now the medicine is much better, and he's married. He actually has a child. I officiated his wedding a couple of years ago, so God bless him and what they're doing. but it's still a struggle. I mean, he's still, I mean, if he was to get COVID, forget about it. I mean, that could have been a death sentence for him. And so there's people that lose their life very young, and he still has his, but man, it's a grind
Yeah.
just to survive. Anyway, so the lesson I've learned from him is that those things that in his life that are normal, and there are a lot of things that are normal despite his illness, he cherishes. I mean, he's all about it. Like, for example, like, he loves dogs. And I don't even know if I've ever said this to him, but you can just tell the like he has this love for that relationship he has with his pets like no other, because that's something that's totally normal. The pet doesn't know. The pet doesn't look at him and say,
Yeah.
"Oh man, you have CF." The pet
Uh-huh.
just loves him for who he is. So that's the lesson I learned there. And then the third person that I'll point to for dedication to his craft, and a lot of my friends who are New York Giants fans, including myself, because I'm from New York, are probably going to slap me for this one. Um, but I've always admired Tom Brady's work ethic and the amount of time he puts in and the dedication he has. Now, it's taken away from some other areas of his life, you might argue, but to be that dedicated and for that something to be that meaningful to you, and it doesn't have to be football, it could be something else, is pretty inspiring. And so the things that I take on in my life, I always say, you know what, if I can be that dedicated to it and show the people around me that I care that much, I'll be that much better of a leader. So those are the three people that I point to. I could give you lessons from 100 people, but
Yeah.
those are the ones that came to mind.
So as a journalist, who would be a dream interview for you? Who would you love to interview?
Man, I would like to interview anyone who's got who has a position of power that uses it for good, right? So there's a lot of athletes and actors and entertainers that come to mind. One person that I think I would throw out there first would be, well, Tom's a good one because
Yeah.
he said that, but I'll jump over Tom, and I will say I'd like to interview Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Have you
And go ahead.
I was just going to say his interview on Rogan was really good. He's a cool cat.
Mhm. Yep, listen to that, and, he did a course recently, like, for, a live webinar thing for people, kind of helping them find better purpose in what it is that they do, and I'd love to ask him questions about that.
Yeah.
And sure, we could talk a little bit about movies and all right, and but
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
yeah, but I would really love to ask him about mindset, and what it was like growing up, and at what point did he realize that he had of what his purpose actually was? Because I never got that answer in some of his content. So,
Yeah.
love to talk to him about that.
Yeah, he's stellar. Let me ask you this, as a sports fan,
Interstellar.
especially a football fan, if we get off the phone, time machine pulls up the sports
Mhm.
DeLorean, and you can go anywhere in sports history and see a moment with your own very eyes, where are you going?
I am going to probably one of the probably an old, when the Knicks won the NBA Finals back in the day in the '70s, because I've that's a New York sports team that I've never seen win a championship. I've seen the Rangers in '94. I've seen plenty of Yankees championships. I've seen the Giants Super Bowls over the Patriots recently, and then also in '90 there. So I would love to go back and see when the basketball team from New York was at when the mecca of basketball truly was
Yeah.
back in the day. So I like to see Clyde and those guys. That'd be fun.
You may not like my answer. So you're a Yankees, not Mets, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. See, what I would do, my dad was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island, so I was a Mets fan. So the
Okay.
year
That makes
after the
sense.
Royals won in '85, the Mets did. I would love to be there to see that ball go through Billy Buckner's legs. Dude, I
That
would just lose my mind.
that's a great moment in New York sports history. And I thought about that, and I've thought about that before, but because of I think my dad. So my dad was really nice to people. He'd probably kill me though if I became a Mets fan. So I'd have to pass on it. But that was a heck of an event, and I was technically alive for that. So I was 3 years old, but I was alive.
Let me just tell you something that's mind-blowing about that moment. Billy Buckner was always taken out late in the game because he had bad knees and the weather would always affect him. there was another guy that's always in there, and they only put Buckner in because they thought they were going to win the game and they wanted him on field to celebrate. And I can't remember the player that was supposed to be in, but he
Mhm.
was only in there for celebratory purposes, and that's when it happened.
And he blew it. Yeah, man.
That wild
I'll
how
never
life
forget that.
works.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So, but speaking of all these people like Tom Brady, for instance, and all the Matthew McConaughey, they have high levels of motivation to do what they do. What's that for you? Every day you wake up, you get out of bed, you do what you do and be better. What is that for you?
Well, for me, it's using the time that I have here on Earth because I alluded to it earlier, and I'd be happy to dive into the story. But I almost lost my life at 18 due to illness, and so ever since then, I've always told myself, you know what, I'm going to make the most of the time. Now, I want to be clear. I think a lot of people say that, and it's not successful not every moment of my day do I look back and say I am making the most of it. But if I can make the attempt, I feel like I'm far better than I would be if I wasn't. So what drives me is to use the time that I do have for good to make a lasting impact. And that's not, this not a day goes by where I don't think about this, to be quite honest with you. I think it's really, really important that you use the gifts and skills that you've been blessed with for something positive. And there's a lot of people out there who don't, but very few people in my experience intentionally use the things that they have for negative reasons. I think the vast majority of people kind of lie in the middle somewhere where they just don't know how to, or don't know, or feel distracted, or aren't able to use what they have for good because they feel like they get all these other things that they have to get done in the world. And that's a little bit of an issue with society today, in my opinion. But for me, it's all about, did I take and use what I have today for positive reasons? Regardless of how many things I have, I could feel like I have a million skills, or I could feel like I have a very limited skill set, which is actually where I believe I fall into. And maybe that's kind of a cheat code for me, because now I feel like there aren't that many things that I have to worry about to use for good. But because I've identified those things, that's it. I mean, that's what it's all about. Whether it's work, personal, faith, life, all of those things, I try to use them for good, and to contribute to those areas.
I think a part of that has to do with age too. I think we get to a point where we understand how bad and silly things can be, and we do have the power to
Yeah.
change those things. I mean, we are the only ones in control of what we can do to shape the
Agreed.
future to a good degree.
100% agree. And that's the thing. When I was 18, I was sick, and I was healed eventually. And I thought to myself, well, how am I going to use this time wisely? I didn't know the answer right away. It took years after that. I made the decision at that point, and I'm fully comfortable saying that I made a life-changing decision when I was 18, but I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea how that was going to manifest. I didn't know how to use what I had. I didn't even know what I had at that point. I said, whatever I come across, because I'm only 18, I'm not even a fully developed adult yet. Whatever I do come across, I'm going to do my best to use it for good. And that's been quite a journey over the past 20 years or so.
So, of all the things that you've done in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the proudest. So there's an organization my wife and I are involved in, called Spoke Folk. It changed my life. That's actually how I met my wife. That's a whole nother story. But we mentor high school and college students, and because of my medical history, I don't have any children of my own. And so and my wife's a kindergarten teacher. So we spend a lot of our time with young people. And the more and more I realize, and I wish I would have known this when I was 18, but potential and abilities are formed very, very well by the time, I mean, even high schoolers
Yeah.
have tremendous abilities to do things. I think once you get to that adolescent point, it's less about developing more abilities and more about figuring out how to use them well, and figuring out how to hone them in. It's right. It's like you have the ability to do something great. You just can't do it consistently yet because you don't have the confidence yet. You haven't done it enough times. And whether that's athletic or it's intellectual, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so what I'm most proud of is showing young people that they truly are the future leaders of the world, and putting them in positions to be successful. Not me personally putting them in, but helping them find positions to be successful. I think that's really, really meaningful to what my wife and I, part of our life's work is, to be honest with you.
So, of all the things that you've done professionally, what's your favorite success story? Something that always puts a smile on your face?
Professionally,
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think honestly, I think starting a business alone, just by itself, I mean, after 12 years of counseling thousands, literally thousands of business owners and families, I kind of expected, maybe this is a little bit of arrogance, maybe it's a little bit of naivete, but I thought it was going to be easier, the business part of owning a business. I knew it was going to be challenging to start again and find new customers and do those things, but actually running a day-to-day business and starting it from scratch, I'm pretty proud of that because it was a lot harder than I expected, even though I had counseled many people who own businesses for 12 years.
So, Bob, everyone out there has a perception of you. You have all these pockets of people, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a highly motivated, limited skill set, inspired person. And what I mean by that is I I mentioned earlier, I have a very limited time. I feel like, I mean, life is short. You talked about getting older, and I mean, it's cliche, but it's so true. I mean, we're but a vapor. So I'm highly motivated to do something. And I've always been like that, even when I was younger. I mean, whether it was building Legos or winning, my little league t-ball game, whatever it was, always been highly motivated. But those other things have came as time has moved on. I've realized the things that I'm hyper focused on, I'm really, really good at. And I said to myself, well, if there's a thousand skills in the world and I'm good at three of them, why would I spend time with the other 997? So highly motivated, limited skill set, and super focused person to get stuff done. And that's what I do. I mean, you put something in front of me. It used to be when you put something in front of me, it was like, okay, let me take 10 minutes, figure this out. 3 days, who knows, a year to figure out if it's meaningful or not. Now it's so much simpler in my life. It's, you put it in
Yeah.
front of me, within 30 seconds, I know if it's meaningful or not. And if it's not, no offense, but I'll pass it. I'll be more than happy to try to find someone else that can help you with it, or
Yeah.
it's meaningful to them. But if it is and it fits on my list, then I'm all in.
So, what's your favorite thing about China?
The food.
Yeah. So, is it like what we get here?
No,
That's what I
no.
hear.
Yeah. The names are the same, but the quality and the depth of the palette is just way, way, way
Oh,
different.
man.
Yeah, totally different experience. And second, I'd probably say the people, because
Yeah.
the people there, maybe that's because they're interested in the American dollar, but my family for 2 decades was treated, so they were just teachers at an international school. They weren't, famous diplomats or athletes or anything, and they were treated very, very, very well. So the quality of the food, and there's different. It's regional too. It's like in America, American food is so, well, to the Chinese people, there's such, to us, it probably all sounds or looks the same, but to them, the regions are different. And there's a restaurant chain over there called Lost Heaven, and they serve Cantonese food, which is a little bit different than most of the food in Shanghai and South. And that, by the way, was probably my favorite place to go. And most of it is served family style.
Wow.
So they have a lazy Susan in the middle of the table. You go out to eat, and everyone orders like one or two things off the menu, and you just spend a couple hours. It's not a rush. You don't
Uh-huh.
stuff your face, not fast food. You sit down, you have tea, you spend time, you fellowship with each other, you talk, you enjoy each other's company, and you spin the thing around, and you eat. And it's just a tremendous experience to dine in China.
I remember that when I went to Italy the first time. They were just like, yeah, spette, slow down, it's
Yeah.
okay. You have four courses, and I had no idea, and
Mhm.
it's an event. It's a way of galvanizing the people around you and just taking a minute and breathing. And we don't quite do that well here in America.
No, we don't. And so over here in America, we have this term or this phrase, this cliche, and it's "I have to eat," right? It's I'm running around. Oh shoot, I got to eat. I have to
Yeah.
eat. Hey, what are you doing? Oh man, I have to eat. It's not like that over there in
Yeah.
other places. It's I get to eat.
Uh-huh.
We get this opportunity to spend time with the family, and we eat together. And it's
Yeah.
totally, totally different mindset. I think it's way healthier.
Yeah, I agree. Bob, if anyone wants to hire you, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
Best place is my website, bobdepasquale.com. Has all my social links. If you're an organization that wants to hear about generosity and how it can help you grow radically, then I'm your man. I'd love to talk to you. So hit me up at the website there, and you have an opportunity to talk to me.
Man, this has been wonderful, Bob. Thank you. I appreciate you opening up. You got a wonderful story, man.
Joe, appreciate it, my friend. All the best.
Yes, sir. Take care.